Greetings, folks. John Grace, President, Investors Advantage, and the Money Doctor is in. Now, I want to go back down memory lane with you, along with your kids. And let's suppose it's December, and Christmas or Hanukkah is right around the corner. When those kinds of dates were coming along in your calendar, what did you do? Did you say, hey, whatever you give me will be fine, whatever gift you give me will be okay, I really don't care? Or did you give a list of things that would satisfy you? Isn't that what you asked your kids to do? And then what did you do? You made sure they got exactly at least 1 or 2 or 3 things that were on their list because you wanted to make them happy. As I go back and look at being 11 years old in the Boy Scouts trying to get my Eagle Merit Badge, one of the things that my scout troop was very fond of was bike rides, 25, 50-mile bike rides. And for my scout troop, I have to tell you, the standard bearer bicycle was Schwinn. I mean, if it wasn't a Schwinn, it wasn't a bike. I mean, you could bring a Huffy, you could bring in something from JCPenney, but the Boy Scouts would look at you like, you better have some really strong legs if you think you're going to get to the front of this line because we're going to beat you. All right, they're very competitive. But at the end of the day, I knew what I wanted was a green Schwinn 10-speed bicycle. That's what I had to have. I have to tell you that to me was the cat's meow relative to bicycles. And if it wasn't a Schwinn, I did not want it. This is true. So notice we all knew what we wanted when we were kids. And as we get more mature and we deal with life, we go, oh, whatever. Oh, I don't know. When it comes to investing, we throw darts on investments. And if it makes some money, we feel good. And if it doesn't, we feel bad. But we don't know what we're trying to accomplish. We want to separate the knowledge from the news. And we want to separate the knowledge from the noise. And that's what we're doing in this work. So please subscribe and we'll keep you posted on this. But I love a couple of quotes. One comes from Yogi Berra. If you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else. And the second one comes from Brian Tracy. Goals in writing are dreams with deadlines. Now, who doesn't want a dream with a deadline? Because it might show up while we're here to enjoy it. So while we're together, I'm going to establish a dream with a deadline for you, at least to get this scenario started, to get you in the game. Because you see, I have to explain to you that I apologize for my profession. The securities industry, I've been blessed to be in since 1979, and we just tend to make things so complicated, and we speak a foreign language, and we make it so that you never see what it is you're trying to accomplish. So today we're going to get past that and at least give you something that might resonate with you, okay? So let's look at some examples. We see that in 2013, the average 401k balance, remember your parents had not only Social Security but a pension that they were able to live on to some extent. Today the job is 100% ours. There's no one else standing behind us to make sure this work gets done. So if we don't know what we're doing and any road will take us wherever we get to, maybe that won't work so well. Maybe we need to figure out what we're trying to accomplish. And if the account balance is 18.4, because see, we have this mantra in the US of A, it's called spin, baby spin. When we need to exchange that for save, baby save, and teach our kids to save, baby save. Again, if we don't do it, who's going to do it for us? And we look a little bit further and we see that with account balances for 40% of people who are retiring, it's less than $10,000. Now, what can you do in this country, in this world, with $10,000? For those older, they have a higher account balance, but it's still insufficient. For those 44 to 54, we see from the same sources that the account balance is about $76,381 in 2013. Now, again, what can you do with that? One of the things that we find is fees come into the equation, and some are suggesting that some of the fees in some accounts are 20% higher than they are in other accounts. That would suggest that if you could discount those fees and have an account value that's 20% higher, you'd be good, right? Well, you tell me. If you have $77,000 and we could increase that by 20%, that would give you an account value of about $92,000. And I'm going to tell you, that's the good news, and here's the bad news. You're only $2.4 million short. Now, that means your goal right now is $2.5 million. Did we just make that up? No, we didn't. If we look at the Census Bureau for the residents in Thousand Oaks, we find that the average household income, whether it's 1 or 2 people working, is about $100,000 a year. So let's suppose you would like to see $100,000 plus your Social Security plus your pension, if you get any of those, or not. You want to see the same $100,000 out in a year. Then we establish a withdrawal speed limit of 4%. That means you need to write a check in the amount of $2.5 million today with a 4% withdrawal. That would provide a $100,000 income. That's your goal. Now, the average household income in America is about $52,000. Now, on the one hand, $50,000, geez, what can you do with that in Ohio? On $100,000, you're probably in the same boat. You just can't do that much, and you're not saving a dime. But we want to replicate the same income that we were earning. So if you're talking to your cousin somewhere in the Midwest, you may be able to have this conversation with your cousin. That's to take out roughly $52,000. Assuming again the 4% withdrawal, it might mean writing a check for $1,250,000 today. How many people can write checks for $1.2 million, $2.5 million? Not too many from what I can determine. And let's just understand, that's to keep things static. That's not wealthy. $50,000 in America is not wealthy. $100,000 in America, in thousand notes, is not wealthy. That's just average. All right, so we want to do at least average, yes? Okay, kind of maintain things. So now let's talk about how well things work when account balances go down when we're making contributions, because that's one of the things that we all bought into, and it does work that way when we're making contributions or when we don't need the money. But let's also do the math, particularly if we're taking withdrawals, because a 50% decline may work to your advantage if you're making contributions. It actually works to your disadvantage when you're taking withdrawals. So let's do the math real quickly. A loss of 50% means we need a gain of about 100% just to get back to that pre-market loss, okay? And then if we're taking, let's say, a yield, or we set our withdrawal limit at 5%, now we're down a total of 55% after the 50% market loss. Let's suppose that happens again, and now the total loss is about 60%. If that's the case, we may find that we need about 150, 160% gain just to get back to even. So it becomes more important when we start taking these withdrawals that we do everything we can to limit the losses. My suggestion is that we see if there's any evidence, particularly over the last 14, 15 years, where we saw the maximum drawdown in accounts of 20% or less. Because even with a 5% withdrawal, we may find we only need a 30 or 33% gain to get back to even. Still a tall order, but certainly a whole lot less than needing a 100% or 150%, 160% gain. There's just no odds in most cases that might happen, and that means the plane's going down and you will never recover. We want to stay in the game. So let's make sure we can see if the next time the grits hit the pan, if we can see that in the last two times that our losses could have been 20% or less, that might give us some confidence that the next time these kinds of events happen, we don't have to go down like the Titanic, okay? We want to stay in the game as opposed to go down with the ship. So, when we look at the consistency of 7% versus a volatile 8%, that's the question. Which do you prefer? An 8% return, simple interest, or 7%? And the easy answer is 8%, but that's not the correct answer. The better answer is a 7% consistent trumps an 8% volatile. All right, and here are the numbers. We start with $100,000 and then with an 8% return. After seeing 8% the first year, but then a 30% loss, see how devastating that is? We see the value is about $151,000. Versus if we see a consistent 7% return each year for 7 years, we have a balance of about $160,000. That's a difference of about $8,700. It does help by keeping the account as consistent, limiting the losses, maybe not swinging for the fences for the gains, but if we limit the losses, we don't need to try and hit a home run to stay in the game, all right? So I'm going to suggest as your, doctors like writing prescriptions, so your prescription, folks, is to figure out what's your target. Do you see your goal? It may be a big, ambitious number, but the first thing you have to do is to be able to see the goal, and then you might be able to achieve the goal. That might help. So we're going to do what we can to keep it simple, but we want to make sure we get it right, and then review all of our assumptions at least annually to see are we on track. Because if we're on track, that feels good. And if we're way off track, well, we better do a whole lot of things real quickly, otherwise we're down for the count. So we're going to ask you again to share and subscribe to this information. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the Money Doctor is out.